Hello students, welcome to CEFR 1119 English Language SPM Quick Revision Series with Miss Prema. Hi boys and girls, in this quick revision series video, we will learn some tips and techniques to answer listening test during the upcoming SPM examination. This video is created exclusively for SPM candidates. Let's see, learn, and understand the answering tips and techniques for Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4 of the listening test. We will explore in depth on how to listen and answer the listening test questions. In this video, we will look briefly into the CEFR SPM 1119/4 listening paper. This introduction guide video will explain about the listening paper's format and the steps candidates can follow during the listening test in order to answer the questions successfully. This video sharing will be also very helpful and useful for both government and private 2021 SPM candidates. Boys and girls, let's look at some details about the CEFR SPM listening test format and its features. The code of the paper is 1119/4. In this paper, there are 4 parts for candidates to answer. Part 1 and Part 2 consist of multiple choice questions, whereas in Part 3, the questions are matching questions, and Part 4 questions are in note completion format. During the listening test, the audio tracks will be heard twice for each and every part of the paper. There will be 30 questions in total, which means the total marks for listening test will be 30 marks. One question carries 1 mark. The total of 30 marks will be 25% of the overall grade. The SPM listening test is designed for B1, B2, CEFR performance level. Therefore, it is advisable for candidates to listen attentively and answer all the parts accordingly. Now, let's look at some details about CEFR SPM listening test timing. The listening test duration is for 40 minutes. For 33 minutes, candidates will be listening and answering the questions in every part. However, from the 34th minute until the 40th minute, which is around 5 to 6 minutes, candidates are required to transfer the answers into the answer sheet separately. Candidates must use 2B type pencils to blacken and write the answers by parts. Let's analyze and understand Part 1 of the listening test. The question type in Part 1 is 3-option multiple choice questions. There will be 3 options to choose, like A, B, or C. There are 7 questions in Part 1. One question carries 1 mark. The type of audio text in Part 1 is short, unrelated dialogues or monologues. There will be 7 audio texts pertaining to 7 different situations. Each question is based on 1 audio text of a situation. In Part 1, candidates need to listen to 7 different situations. Each situation has an audio text describing a situation for candidates to listen twice. This means there is one 3-option multiple choice question per audio text. The options consist of 1 correct option and 2 distractors or wrong options. Carefully listen to the audio text to identify the distractors and the correct option. Be alert that all 3 options details will be mentioned in the audio. Therefore, listen attentively and identify the correct option. Now, let's analyze and understand Part 2 of the listening test. The question type in Part 2 is 3-option multiple choice question. There will be 3 options to choose, like A, B, or C. There are 8 questions in Part 2. 1 question carries 1 mark. The type of audio text in Part 2 is 1 long listening text. The flow of the text will be following the 8 questions sequence in the exam paper. Therefore, listen to the audio text attentively. In Part 2, candidates need to listen to 1 long audio text twice. This means all 8 questions in Part 2 will be based on that particular 1 long audio text. The options consist of 1 correct option and 2 distractors or wrong options. Carefully listen to the audio text to identify the distractors and the correct option. The candidates must listen attentively as the questions are arranged according to the audio flow. Boys and girls, let's analyze and understand Part 3 of the listening test. The question type in Part 3 is a matching question. Candidates need to match the speakers with the sentences that are related to the audio text. There are 7 sentences in Part 3 to be matched with 5 speakers. 1 question carries 1 mark. The types of audio text in Part 3 are 5 short monologues audio text. The text will be approximately around 50 words. Therefore, candidates need to listen to the audio text attentively. In part 3, candidates need to listen to 5 different speakers twice. However, the answer options given will be 7, and they are labeled in capital letters from A until G. There are 7 options of answers in part 3, and candidates need to identify 5 correct options based on the audio text. The options are short sentences which are paraphrased from part 3 listening audio text. This means there are only 5 correct options, and the 2 remaining options are distractors or wrong options. Carefully listen to the audio text to identify the distractors and the correct options. The candidates must listen attentively to know what the speakers are mentioning and focusing on. Let's analyze and understand part 4 of the listening test. The question type in part 4 is a note completion type, or commonly known as fill in the gaps question. There are 10 blanks or gaps in part 4 for candidates to fill up the answer based on the audio text. One blank or gap answers carries 1 mark. The types of audio text in part 4 is one long audio text. Therefore, candidates are required to listen to the audio text attentively and fill up the blanks or gaps with one answer only. In part 4, candidates need to listen to a neutral or informal dialogue, like an interview, twice. Candidates need to complete the gapped summary text with 1 word per blank or gap. However, there will be no answer options given. Candidates need to listen and identify 1 word for each blank or gap. The words are nouns. Please listen intently to identify the words. Here are some reminders for the SPM candidates regarding the listening test. First, there will be some time given in each part before the audio texts are played. The time is given for candidates to go through the questions in the listening question booklet. Therefore, please go through the questions and underline keywords, and listen carefully for the keywords in the audio text to identify the answers. Second, listen carefully during the first listening. The first listening is usually done to seek for the answers. Then, during the second listening, candidates need to confirm the answers. So, underlining the keywords in the question is very important, as the keywords will help the candidates to identify correct options and avoid the distractors or wrong options. Therefore, candidates must remember that before each part begins, time will be given to read the questions in the listening question booklet. Please go through the questions and underline the keyword. And listen carefully for the keywords in the audio text to identify the correct option. Please make full use of the time given by going through the questions and don't forget to underline the keywords. This is my personal advice to all SPM candidates. Always stay calm and be focused in listening while paying attention at the underlined keyword in the questions. Avoid looking at unnecessary things around you which may distract you. You are advised to look at your listening test booklet and listen attentively to the audio text. Students, let's look at a rough picture how the answer sheet may look like. Dear SPM candidates, there is no clear picture of how the answer sheet may look like for time being. Here is a rough idea of how the listening test answer sheet may look like. There will be space for all parts for you to transfer the answers, especially for part 4, where candidates have to write down the answers. Remember to write clearly, avoid spelling errors, be alert and careful while transferring the answer. Now we will look into how to answer every part. In part 1, there will be about 30 seconds given to the candidates before part 1 audio texts are played. The audio texts are pertaining to 7 different situations. During that 30 seconds, candidates need to go through all 7 part 1 questions. During the 30 seconds before the audio begins in part 1, candidates are required to read through the instruction and underline the important details. Look at part 1 questions on the screen. I only screenshot 4 questions as example. There will be 7 questions altogether. The green underline at the instruction explains that candidates will listen to people talking about 7 different situations. So, it is clear that each question will be questioned based on a situation. Next, underline the word or phrases in each question. The blue lines on the screen are highlighting the keywords identified. By doing so, candidates can roughly know what to listen later, and they can easily identify or spot the correct option. Candidates can easily eliminate the 2 wrong options too, which are distractors when they focus on the keywords while listening. However, candidates are advised to listen attentively while looking at the questions in the test booklet during the test. In conclusion, before each part audio begins, time will be given to read the questions, and the first listening is to seek answers, and the second listening is to confirm the answers. In part 2, there will be about 1 minute given to the candidates before part 2 long audio text begins. During that 1 minute, candidates are required to go through all 8 Part 2 questions. Similarly to Part 1, Part 2, during the first minute before the audio begins, candidates are required to read through the instruction and underline the important details. Look at Part 2 questions on the screen. I only screenshot 4 questions as example. There will be 8 questions altogether. The green underline at the instruction explains that candidates will listen to Roy talking about his skateboarding experience. So, it is clear that each question will be asked based on the whole text, and the whole text flow will be following the question sequence. Let's look at the underlined word and phrases in the questions. The blue lines on the screen are highlighting the keywords identified. So, students can roughly know what to listen later for each question while listening to the long text. And they can easily identify or spot the correct option. Not only that, candidates can easily eliminate the wrong options too, which are distractors when we focus on the keywords while listening. However, the candidates are advised to listen attentively while looking at the question in the test booklet during the test. In conclusion, again, before the audio starts, time will be given to read the questions. Then, the first listening is to seek for answers, and the second listening is to confirm the answers. In part 3, there will be about 30 seconds given to the candidates before the audio tracks pertaining to 5 speakers begin. During that 30 seconds, candidates are advised to go through all the details in the question. During the 30 seconds before the audio begins in part 3, candidates are advised to read through the instruction and underline the important details. Look at part 3 question on the screen. The green underline at the instruction explains that candidates will listen to 5 short extracts in which teenagers are talking about shopping habits. So, it is clear that there will be 5 extracts and candidates need to listen and match the speakers with the short sentences. Remember, there will be 7 short sentences and only 5 are correct options. 2 more are distractors or wrong options. Next, underline the word or phrases in each sentence. The blue lines on the screen shows the keywords that are identified. By doing so, candidates can roughly know what to listen later, and they can easily identify or spot the correct options. Candidates can easily eliminate the 2 wrong options too, which are distractors when they focus on the keywords while listening. However, candidates are advised to listen attentively while looking at the questions in the test booklet during the test. In conclusion, before each part audio begins, time will be given to read the questions. The first listening is to seek for answers, and the second listening is to confirm the answer. In part 4, there will be about 1 minute given to the candidates before part 4 long audio text begins. Let's look in depth on what candidates are recommended to do while answering part 4 of the listening test. First, during the 1 minute before part 4 audio begins, candidates are suggested to read the instruction and underline the details on what kind of audio text they will listen later. Let's look at sample part 4 question. At the instruction, it is clearly stated that candidates will hear a student, Azlan, talking about his experience as an exchange student in Italy. That particular line is underlined in green. Therefore, candidates will have some ideas on what part 4 audio text will be about. Next, in the next line of instruction, it is stated no more than one word. It means each blank or gap candidates need to fill up with a word only. During that 1 minute, candidates are advised to go through the whole summary text pertaining to Part 4 audio text in the question booklet. Candidates are recommended to recognize all 10 blanks or gaps. Candidates are advised to underline the word or phrases before each blank or gap. By doing so, candidates can easily spot or identify the words, which are nouns, to fill up the blanks or gaps. Remember, the missing words are nouns. However, candidates must listen attentively and look for the answers in the booklet. Boys and girls, remember, what you hear is what you get. Therefore, listen attentively throughout the test and do the best because you can do it. Have trust in yourself. All the best. Take care. Bye. Good luck.